this perfect environment around the earth. When you start to look and you wonder, how did people live so long? And there was no death, right? Death hadn't entered the world until Adam and Eve, right? Until they sinned. As far as the death of the recreation. So God created this perfect environment around the earth. There's some interesting studies that have been done by scientists, and I'll just allude to one, where they create this perfect environment for these fish. And the fish are about the size of my hand. And on average, they live a year. And they create this perfect environment where they are controlling the nitrogen and essentially blocking out the ozone, and they did all these things. The fish grew to be about 5 times bigger than normal. In fact, it was amazing how big these fish grew to. And they lived about 10 times longer. You wonder why, just people say, well, you come to Genesis chapter 4, how could they live that long? Well, in a perfect environment without bacteria, in a perfect environment without the ozone and radiation coming from the sun, and also in a perfect environment where people they didn't have the genetic damage that we were all born with. And you ever realize there are a bunch of glands in our body and they don't know what they're for? The appendix. What is the purpose of the appendix? The other thing, other than causing people problems, they have to have it taken out. And there's a gland right here on the right side of the brain, and they don't know why it's there. And the belief of many scientists, and these secular scientists as well as Christian scientists, the belief is that these glands were actually working in producing a much more healthy immune system, which would alluded to people living a lot longer. So here God makes this. Now I want you to see something here, and this is important. The word for make here, and God made, is, again, there's 2 different words that are used here in Genesis. The word that's used for God created in Genesis 1:1, that word is bara. And again, I said this to you last week. Bara, it denotes God creating something from nothing. We call it from divine fiat. And only God can do that, right? When we create something, if you're going to build a house, right, you go and chop down some trees, right? Or the lumber people, you buy the lumber of trees that have been chopped down, and you buy materials that have already been created here, and then you're able to build a house. When God creates, He creates from nothing. We call it ex nihilo. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and He created all things. All things were created by Him. God spoke into existence. Okay, the universe and the earth. So that word is bara. But the word that's used here, and you're going to see it's used over and over and over again now, from verse 3 right to the end of the chapter. The word is AUSA, and AUSA is a word. It's basically used to describe God's direct creative work, but it's essentially the idea that He's taking something already there and making something from it. So when he created here the concept of this expanse. Again, it was something that was already there, and he was able then to just make it. He's shaping. You know what I say? Really, I think it's God working with the molecules and working with the atoms that were already there to be able to create. So this is to give you an understanding, I believe, of what this expanse is, and likely the troposphere, which is it's really the first sphere around the Earth. And some people will go further and say that it also involves the stratosphere or the mesosphere or the thermosphere or the exosphere. But essentially, I believe it's a reference that this expanse that is created is the troposphere, and that still surrounds Earth. And there's a picture of it. You get 2 pictures of it. And what happens is with the troposphere now, we have the water cycle begins. The water cycle is the separation, okay, of the water, okay, essentially from the seas. They were one, and now we have that cycle which begins. So that's essentially the first day. God creates an expanse. So we have atmosphere, essentially around the Earth. Day 3. God makes the seas and the dry land, and He calls the land earth, and He also makes plants of every kind. So we come to verse 9 and 10, and then God said, "Let the waters under the heavens be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and gathered together of the waters He called seas. and God saw that it was good. So, just as we were looking at before, now we have oceans, we have lakes, we have rivers, we have streams, we have ponds. And now we have land suddenly appear. Now watch something interesting here, verse 11. Then God said, let the earth bring forth grass. I want you to notice that. Notice what he's saying here. Let the earth bring it forth. So he wasn't creating grass seed. Okay, you'll notice, let it bring forth grass, the herb that yields seed, and the fruit tree that yields fruit according to its kind. Whose seed is in itself on the earth. How did it get there? Now just think about this, because if God is, again, if this is continuous God creating bara, right? Something from nothing, the seed is already there. So where did it come from? Well, think about it. Does anybody have an idea? I believe it was there from that, again, first creation of Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. I believe the earth was beautiful. I believe the earth was filled with all types of shrubs and trees, and I believe the earth was inhabited. Who do you think inhabited it? Who do you think inhabited the earth before? Who? Well, that's good. That's a good point. But you know what? Because they fit in somewhere. The angels. Yeah. Angelic civilization. And I wonder if the angels ate the fruit off the tree. Can angels eat fruit? Well, one day Abraham was right. He was hanging out in the heat of the day, taking a nap, and 3 angels appeared to him. One of them was what we call an anthropomorphism of Jesus, and he cooked some curds up and some cheese, and he cooked lunch for them, and they ate it. And Jesus, after he was raised from the dead, what did he do? He ate some fish. And when he ate it, it didn't fall through him. Because he had this, it's a body like we're going to have, a glorified body. It's a material, spiritual body. And I believe that's a picture. I think something when the angels rebelled, I believe that the angels, these angels that became demons, something that they lost something. And I believe that something that they had was lost. I'll get into that. We'll get into that as we get further into the book of Genesis. But the seeds were already there. So let the earth bring forth grass and herb. And notice they are to bring it according to its kind. I want you to see this. This is something that God repeats over and over again. According to its kind. And whose seed is in itself on the earth, and it was so. And the earth brought forth grass and herb that yields seed according to its kind. Yeah. And the tree that yields fruit, whose seed is in itself according to its kind. Notice 3 times according to its kind. When you go to the supermarket, have you ever seen fruit that isn't according to its kind? Have you ever seen meat products, chicken, and that are not according to its kind? And how many of you, when you go into the food market, you see this? Genetically modified organisms. Genetically modified organisms. You know what they are? They are not according to its kind. Tomatoes are to be tomatoes. Pears are to be pears. Apple to be apples. People are playing. People are messing around. And what they're doing is they're combining. And they're changing the DNA of the fruits. They're not according to its kind. We're doing it with animals too. Anybody know about the effects that the scientists are telling us that GMOs have on us? And just be careful when you go in. Just buy GMO, non-GMO fruit. Because what they're telling us is genetically modified organisms. They're untested, they're unlabeled, they're banned or restricted in 50 countries. In 50 countries, but they're legal here in the United States. And if you start reading the studies on it, they cause disease. They cause cancer. Mm-hmm. And by the way, you can find labels on them now, the FDA. So when you go in the market, I avoid the some of them taste, by the way, really good. It's just that they're not good for you. There's many things that taste really good that are not good for you. But you're putting things inside of you that apparently it will mess around with your DNA. And this experimentation with fruits and vegetables. It goes into all kinds of animal products. It's going into everything right now. Is it man playing God? We're in the age of man playing God. It's getting more and more and more technological. It's amazing what's going on. So God creates, right? He creates, separates. We have continents, we have lakes, we have oceans, and the seed, again, it germinates. So then we have all these incredible plants. Day 4. God makes the sun for the day and the moon for the night, and he also makes the stars in the sky. So we have here, then God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to be divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and seasons and for days and for years, and let them be for lights in the firmament of the heavens to give light on the earth. So it was. And then it says, and then God made 2 great lights. The greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night. Okay, the sun and the moon. We know that the moon reflects, right, the rays of the sun. Notice the word made. Okay, I'm sharing with you, there are two words, key words in Genesis 1 that are used for create and made. What are they? Does anybody know? What did God say? Genesis 1:1, that God created? Bara. And that is, again, creating from nothing. Ex nihilo, divine fiat. And then the other word is AUSA. AUSA is always used to be making something from something. My belief is that the stars and the sun and the moon were here, but they were damaged because of some type of a cosmic war that occurred between Lucifer and Michael and the archangels. And as scientists, they talk to people. People come in here and they'll say, they will not even listen. I will not even listen to you talk about creation, Pastor Frank. I will not even listen to you. I will not even entertain. I had a guy here, brilliant man. One of the most brilliant people I've come to Living Word. Came here for years. And he was one of the leaders of Lamont Observatory, a subsidiary of Columbia University at Lamont Observatory. Actually, I went there and spoke. And Lamont Observatory, when you're driving down the Palisades Parkway, you'll see it's an observatory with a telescope. It really stands out, especially if you're in the winter. You can see it really clearly. And he believed Jesus Christ was his Lord and Savior. He was totally convinced Jesus was God who came to earth and died and was raised from the dead. And he believed that God created this whole thing through evolution. And I do not believe in evolution. In fact, I believe evolution. I don't believe in evolution simply because I believe evolution is a theory that basically collapses upon itself. And there's no evidence. There's no evidence. I'm telling you this. There's no evidence for evolution. It's scientific theory. They theorize. You know, when you go to the museum, I'm going to get into this real deep with you next week. You go to the museum and you see all these different skulls, and then they have skeletons. You realize that none of those skulls and skeletons were ever found. They create one skeleton out of a tooth. Later on, they found that it was a pig's tooth. They created another skeleton out of a very abnormal shaped skull. That when they later studied it, it was the skull of a child who had Down syndrome. And they messed up on the carbon dating. Carbon dating is always a very difficult thing. And needless to say, he believed he believed in evolution. So when I teach on Jenna, he would not come. Like shut his ears up, because he was convinced that this is the way that God did it. And one day he said to me, you believe the Earth is only a few thousand years old. How can you believe that? Science, shows that the Earth is millions, billions of years old. I looked at him. I said, I believe the Earth is millions or billions of years. I don't know quite how old it is, but I don't believe it's 6,000 years old. Which some Christians do believe. God bless them. Some of my favorite teachers believe that. I believe the Earth is billions, millions of years old. I believe that there again was a period where there was a separation. Genesis 1:1 between Genesis 1:2, and I believe that separation could very well be billions of years. I said, you believe that? You believe? Shocked? You believe that? Because he was around a group of fundamentalists in the church that he came from, and nobody believed that. So I believe that the proper exegesis, the proper study, we call hermeneutics, exegesis, the study of Genesis 1:1 shows that very clear. The first two verses aren't a part of the first day. It doesn't take a whole lot of scholarship to see that. So when you have here, then God made, the word is again AUSA, I believe what you have is, you have this matter out there, okay? I don't know if they're, if they're, it's energy, but God, then now He's shaping things. And He creates the sun. And He creates, the moon. Again, making them from things, that, material that was already there. The better word, made. And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night. And He made the stars also. And God set them in the firmament of the heavens to give light to the earth and to rule over the day and over the night and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. So the evening and the morning were the fourth day. Again, there's the words there. And again, what would this look like if I was to take you again? The waters, this moisture, and this is a picture of what some people believe, that out there at the edge of the universe is H2O. Or something like it. Now, I want to wrap this up by saying this to you. What you're seeing, and I believe what you're seeing here is, and again, whether you believe in the gap theory or not, Genesis chapter 1, verse 2, there is barrenness, there's emptiness, there is void, there's darkness, and there's the Holy Spirit grieving over this. And what does God do? And this is a theme of God. He makes all things new. You're getting a picture there, metaphorically, spiritualized Genesis. Some people say spiritualized Genesis 1:1. They say it's not, it was never meant to be taken literally. I believe it wasn't meant to be taken literally, but they'll say it's an allegory. And I believe you can see an allegory here of us. Right? God makes us new. He takes our barrenness. He takes our emptiness. The Holy Spirit grieves over our lives. The unbeliever. And it tells us in Isaiah chapter 43, verse 19, the Living Translation, "For I am about to do something new. See, I have already begun. Do you not see it?" God likes to do new things. New things. Revelation chapter 21, verse 5. A new beginning. Behold, I make all things new. We're heading for another newness of God. And 2 Corinthians just talking about us. Right? What this means is that those who became Christians became new persons. They are not the same anymore. Have you noticed that about yourself? Right? You still have some oldness in you. The old flesh is still there, right? But for the most part, I don't go to the places I used to go. I don't watch the things I used to watch. Right? I don't do the things I used to do. I don't say the things I used to say. And I haven't been made perfect, but I'm not the same person. I'm not the same person. They are not the same anymore, for the old life is gone, a new life has begun. All this newness of life is from God, who brought us back to Himself through what Christ did. And I just want to show you one more thing. Take a look at this with me. This is if you take a prophetic timeline, and we're in the present church age. So that first section there on the left, we're in the present church age, and since the birthday of the church, when was the church's birthday? Who knows? What was Pentecost, right? That was the birthday of the church. So we sing happy birthday when the Holy Spirit came, right? And so the church age began at Pentecost, and the church age is going to end at the rapture. And Jesus gave us many, many signs to be looking for in the time that the rapture would happen. He said, you won't know the exact day of time, right? Day, or, you're not going to know the day, you're not going to know the moment. But he said, you won't know the signs. And we seem to have those signs happening right now in our world like never before. So when the rapture happens, we then go into what is called the tribulation period, 7 years. So it looks really big there. The church age is much longer. Actually, there's more written about the tribulation, amazingly. If you read Revelation chapter 6 through 19 covers the tribulation. If you read Revelation, the church age, that covers 2 chapters, right? Chapter 2 and 3. And you have the entire, really, explanation of the tribulation. See, the beginning of sorrows, the first 3.5 years, the great tribulation, the last 3.5 years. At the end of the tribulation, the Lord returns to the earth. Right? He comes to take His bride with Him at the beginning, but He comes and He returns to the earth. And again, it's very, very systematic as you read through the book of Revelation. You put bits and pieces together from Daniel and from Matthew and from 1 Thessalonians, 2 Thessalonians, but book of the Revelation, it's pretty chronological, the way it reads. The Lord comes back for his bride, and those people who have survived the tribulation, believers, will go into what is called the millennial kingdom. That's a 1,000 millennial. It says it's 6 times in the first half of Genesis chapter 20. The first 6 verses, 6 times the millennial kingdom is mentioned, and a 1,000-year reign of Christ on earth. At the end of the millennial reign, you have the final judgment, the great white throne judgment. Okay? And what does God do then? Who knows? What happens? What happens when you see that final judgment? In fact, in the final judgment, it suddenly says that what happened to the universe? It's gone.
Mm-hmm.
It's gone. The material universe is gone. Okay, and suddenly there are other people, right? The believers are with him. They're with him in glory, and suddenly the unbelievers are suddenly standing before him, and there's no place for them to hide, and there's the great white throne. Great white throne, and this is the judgment day for them. Now, just what happens when you go into the eternal state, what does God do? So there's no universe. What does he do? He creates what?
New Jerusalem.
A new heavens and a new earth. A new heavens and a new earth that we'll be inhabiting for all eternity. And I want to read this to you from 2 Peter chapter 3, 10 to 13. This explains it. It says, "But the day of the Lord will come like a thief. The heavens will disappear with a roar. And the elements will be destroyed by fire. And the earth and everything done in it will be laid bare." By the way, that elements will be destroyed by fire. When did that first become a possibility in human history? And Nagasaki, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Okay, the elements. And by the way, I think what we have done with using nuclear division and creating a nuclear or hydrogen bomb, God will do it in a much more spectacular way. Since everything will be destroyed in this way, what kind of people ought you to be? You want to live holy and godly lives. As you look forward to the day of God and speed its coming, that day will bring about the destruction of the heavens by fire, and the elements will melt by heat. But keeping with his promise, we are looking forward, now notice this, to a new heaven and a new earth where righteousness dwells. And when you come to the book of the Revelation, right? And then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away. Well, let me just share something with you. I'm going to share a message with you that has been on my heart. And as I've been preparing messages over the course of this summer, I couldn't wait to get to this passage that I'm going to be teaching on Sunday. I believe, first of all, as believers, God gives you the opportunity, He gives you the opportunity to get a panoramic view of history. From the beginning to the very end. And if you take advantage of it and you become a student of His Word and you really learn to study the Word of God in the Spirit and listen to when it's being taught in the Spirit, God will reveal things to you. Let me tell you, He'll reveal things to you that Einstein didn't know. You ever read Einstein? I've read Einstein. Read Einstein on religion. And our kids in our youth group know more about God and know more about really the eternal perspective than Einstein. In fact, if you ever, Einstein was brilliant when it comes to understanding relativity and science and physics. Right? He's brilliant. We couldn't even come close to him. But he wasn't a theologian. Right? He dealt with things in the natural realm. And when he talked about theology, he sounded like a little child. And if you've ever heard, if you've ever listened to somebody who could be so brilliant in one subject, if I was going to come here today and talk about quantum physics, and there was a quantum physicist here, say, this guy's a moron. Yeah, I agree. I would not dare, right? I would not dare to go to the Lamont Observatory and stand there and say, hey, I'm going to teach on quantum physics today. I could talk a little bit about that with you, and I know this much. But Einstein, he knew very little about, again, the divine. And God gives us the opportunity in this life to have a perspective, to know things, the secrets of God. And that's a wonderful thing. I believe that when we are glorified and we go home to be with Him, we are going to be so spectacular. I'm going to say this to you. Not overshadowing God, but reflecting. Reflecting His glory. I'll tell you a little secret. I'll share this on Sunday in detail. Remember when we studied Lucifer a few weeks ago? We talked about Lucifer in Ezekiel chapter 28 and how glorious he was, and he was perfect. And he was adorned with all of these beautiful stones. And he was like the prize of God's creation. You know what I believe? I believe we're going to be more wonderful and more beautiful and more perfect than Lucifer. And you know what? There's going to be a whole generation, the sons and daughters of God. And you know what's going to be beautiful about all this? And if you wonder why God is letting this play out with the pain and difficulties of this world, something is playing out. But there is going to be an entire generation of people, I believe, who will be greater than Lucifer ever was. And we will never rebel against God like Lucifer did for all eternity. And there's something to look forward to. That's why, when you have your little struggles, keep in mind, who you are and what God has for you. And He will create a new heavens and a new earth, which I believe is going to make this heavens and this earth, look like a shack. And we're going to be inhabiting that. We're not going to be sitting on clouds playing fiddles, God is going to send, we're going to be doing something. Our minds are going to be blown every day by God. I truly believe that. When you really get into His Word, God starts to reveal these things to you. And it's in His Word. The great awaiting of the sons of God. Romans said, we're longing and we're awaiting, and we don't really know fully what He has for us, but it's something magnificent and spectacular. He gives us little glimpses into that picture. Fantastic. So let us go to prayer tonight, knowing that we're somebody. Nobody is nobody. We're all somebody, and we're somebodies of great worth and great value. Yes.
I didn't want to interrupt you when you were talking about...
Good. Don't when I'm speaking and get me after.
How are you doing GMOs?
Yes.